The meeting will come to order. Welcome to the 22 September Board of Education meeting. We will now conduct a roll call. Mr. Allen?
Present.
Mr. Doring? Present. Ms. McAllister?
Present.
Please let the record show that Mr. Lear is not present. He is TDY. And please also let the record show that Mr. Gerstner is present, as is Ms. Weatherington, as the representative of the garrison. To the members of the board, the minutes from the last meeting were distributed electronically. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Are there any objections to approving the minutes?
No objections.
Hearing none, the minutes are approved, and we will conduct the official signature at the conclusion of this meeting. All right, now we'll move on to old business. Are there any items of old business from the members of the board?
No.
Any items from the floor? Hearing none, we will move to new business.
Did you want to talk about the school board meeting times now, or you want to wait till the end?
Thank you, Mr. Gerstner. We'll back up and talk school board meeting times. So we've discussed the optimal times and days to conduct meetings, and we found the bottom line is there is no perfect day or time. So as a board, we've discussed doing a mix of evening and daytime meetings in various locations to try to service the community and engage the schools the best that we can. So as we talk about the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 20th of October, we would like to have an evening meeting at 5:30, Mr. Gerstner, and at a location that is appropriate to gain maximum participation.
I think that's a great idea. So I'd like to do it in one of the schools, and without putting anybody on the spot, Fort Knox High School looks like a good place to have an October 20th meeting. Is it possible that we could, do you want to see how the 5:30 meeting goes before we reschedule the rest of the meetings?
Members of the board, do you have any comment?
That'll be fine.
That's good.
Okay,
Okay, so we will, pending feedback from members of the board on the October 20th meeting, any objection to 5:30 at Fort Knox High School?
No.
Hearing none, the motion's carried. And then we will consider the times going forward based on the outcome of the October 20th meeting. And also appreciate the help of the regional district office in pushing the information on the location and time as early as possible. Thank you very much.
yeah, we didn't do such a good job this time, and we will do a better job next time.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, issues, or thoughts on the school board meeting times?
Parents out there.
Okay, and for the audience, there will be time at the end for public participation, but as we're going through these items, if you have input or any thoughts, please feel free to interject. And just ask that if you are going to talk about a specific teacher or student, that you let us know that you have an issue of that nature, and we will call an executive meeting. But if it's something systemic, we would be happy to hear from you. So we'll now move on to new business. So the board has been provided a series of reports. That include the cafeteria monthly report, the financial statement, and enrollment figures. So I'll just give the board a moment to digest those. and provide Mr. Gertzner an opportunity to highlight any items.
I'll do this one down here when we do, kids over, do the facility things. Whatever it- Yours is different than what mine is, so. There was a facilities one there. We'll bring it up down here.
Is there any comment or concerns regarding the three reports in question?
The only question, I mean, we're still showing 44,000 balance for this fiscal year on the budget, so I don't, is that past the due date to get that allocated and utilized, or do we know if that's got to be turned back in at this point?
It has been turned back in, so when they probably ran the report, they had taken that off. We have no monies remaining in our account here for the Kentucky schools. So any monies that we would spend over the next week before the end of the official fiscal year, we'd have to request those from the district level or the area level. So the report was probably run before they took the money back.
31 August, I think, says the date up on top,
Yeah.
so hopefully we allocated a majority of that 44,000, because I know there's probably needs out there in our schools for that money.
Are there any other comments?
No?
Hearing none, we will move on to the academic calendar. Colonel Doring, I understand you've done some preliminary work on forming a committee. I'd like to hand the floor over to you.
Okay, so for the next year's calendar, the thought process on this was to kind of come up with a group or committee to get together a few times, put a recommendation together, and present that. So as the committee chair for that, and also with Stacy volunteering to be the other board member participant with that, we'd also like to see if it makes sense to have a Garrison representative for that committee. We'd like a PTO representative, so collectively, I think we probably have a PTO organization at every school. So I don't know if the presidents of those organizations talk, but maybe they could collectively come up together and say which one of them would like to be the representative on that committee. We'd like a schools rep, which maybe means one of the principals or vice principals potentially for that. And then thought it would be a good idea to have a student rep, preferably from the high school, and maybe somebody from the student council. You know, that way we get participation from the student as well. And that takes it away from being a class member, like if it's one like junior class president, it keeps it out of the realm of they're focused on the student council, student body, vice just their own class. So that's the recommendation that we would like to put forward is forming that committee.
Okay, just to provide the community a little background on this. So many of you that were here will remember that the calendar changed a couple of times last year, and there was a little bit of friction with the communication with the community, and the calendar went back to, at the end, the original calendar from previous years. In coordination with Mr. Gerstner's office, this year we're working together to try to figure out what the optimal calendar is for the schools, for the parents, for the students, and for the staff. And there are several aspects here, not the least of which is integrating new hires. So we haven't presupposed any outcome. This committee will work through it and gain input through all stakeholders. So there's a motion on the table to establish a committee made up of the representative from Garrison, PTO, 2 board members, students, and a school administrator. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I make a comment?
Do
Absolutely.
we have discussion on it at all yet? I don't know if anybody, yeah, thank you.
I'd like to offer, not an administrator, but someone from the bargaining agency to be a school representative. And we have 2 members of the bargaining agency here, so.
All right. All right, and would like to open it up to further discussion at this point. If there are any comments? No?
And I'll add one comment. The intent of the PTO rep is so the families or parents have an opportunity. So hopefully those reps will ask for input from those organizations to bring forward.
I was just thought of something. Is it like when there was an issue with the uniform idea, you guys did a survey? Is it possible that once you kind of come up with what kind of questions we're trying to answer, that you could set up a survey that can be sent out electronically so that all parents, you can get a good feedback from everybody? Because that won't take long. It'll totally give you a statistical look at what everybody is thinking.
I think once we come up with a draft, I think we could put that out for, responses back, but within a short window, because
Absolutely.
we could get 1,000 responses, 1,000 different responses, because everybody's got their personal opinion and everything. So, but absolutely, we could look at doing that.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, the motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is IEPs 504 SPED program management. And I think, Mr. Gersner, the basis of this is we're at the time of year where those initial meetings should have happened. I think there are 2 or 3 weeks left in the window, and we just hope to get a sense for overall program management, where we stood, and if there are any items of concern.
Sure. This is always a delicate topic, because if you're a parent of a special needs student, and sometimes I tell folks, we're the ones, it's not the child who has the handicapping conditions, we're the ones who are handicapped because I don't learn the way they learn. So that it's very difficult if you're a parent of a kid who learns differently than maybe the other kids do. We have about 15% of our population is in special education. Now that includes children that are speech and language. It could include an autistic child. It could include a vision impaired. It could include someone who has a physical handicap condition. What we do when the child moves in is we take the IEP that they bring, the individualized education plan, we take that and we accept it as it's written until we have time to analyze whether or not there needs to be modifications or changes to make things work for that child in our learning environments in our schools. That could include the child having an aid, whether or not there's an aid included in with that or not. So sometimes we have to put a substitute in there because we don't have the staffing sitting ready to go, or it might not. We are generally provisioned very well, so we have materials ready for those students as they arrive. For students who we determine that they may be having some learning difficulties, or there may be some other things that are going on in their lives that are not permitting them to learn, they would go into the referral process. And typically a teacher would be the first one to discover this, or they could be a parent, but a parent or a teacher could say, I would like to put my child into the referral process. And then a team of educators meets with the parents, and we put together what it is that we're going to do to make sure are we targeting the right thing? Are they, do they have a learning disability? Do they have physical disability? Do they have are they autistic? We could use a battery of assessments there. We do some observations that go on from a number of people. The process is, it's fairly elaborate and sometimes takes a fairly long time. It's, we're permitted by regulation to take 45 school days. So if you're doing the math, 45 school days is a whole 9-week school period. And so if you start throwing in there things like, so if your child if we're saying today we've discovered your child's having some difficulties. So we have a meeting next week, and we decide we're putting the child in the referral process, and then we have fall break. And then we get into November, which would still be within the 45 days, and we have Veterans Day. And then we have Thanksgiving. And then we have 3 weeks before Christmas. And suddenly we get to January, and we still haven't done anything with this child as far as if they qualify for services. It's that long. We're working with our educators to expedite these processes so that we don't take the 45 days. And I do want to know if this is dragging. If you're a parent or you know a parent who's frustrated, and it is frustrating when your child's not learning, they need to contact us right away. Dr. Linda Brake is our lead person for special education right now in Kentucky. Tomorrow I'm reviewing applications for someone that we're going to station here for special education that would be the lead for the Knox schools. So I should have that person on board, I would say probably by the middle to the end of October, which will help our educators here if they have someone to turn to directly. I just can't tell you enough that don't let a parent be frustrated. If you know someone, I have plenty of parents out there, if you know someone who is frustrated, if you know somewhere it's not working, you need to come and tell. If the principal doesn't listen first, then come to me. Most of our principals are here, and most of them will tell you they're good listeners. So please go to them, and we'll see what we need to do. Sometimes it does go to the full 45 days because students are absent, or a teacher is absent, or it takes a while to get an analysis done. We've been short-staffed here. We have been short an assessor. We've been short a psychologist, folks that would work normally in this process. We're in the process of hiring those. Once we get those fully staffed, we should be going a little bit faster. But I'm not going to tell you we're perfect right now. I expect by the time we get to the second semester in January, this process is going to be moving better and faster and in the right direction for kids and for families. Is the 504 plans, those are children who need an academic accommodation. And that should be expedited fairly quickly. So if your child needs to have more time to take assessments, or your child maybe needs to have someone read it to them, those kinds of things. For smaller children, sometimes it's the size of, it could be something as simple as a pencil. What size is the pencil? Whether you have a different grip on the pencil. It can be that simple, but it is a 504 accommodation that we would provide, not in the special education center. It's an academic accommodation. So if you know someone who needs those types of things, please, again, go to the school. The principal won't take that on. He'll give that to somebody who's going to assist you. It could be the counselor, or it could be somebody else who works on their case review committees that work on that. But please steer them right to the school so that they can do that. Dr. Brake can also provide assistance if it's needed. And then as far as the special education program, I told you we're hiring someone now that will oversee the special education services here at Fort Knox. We are still hiring some folks in the schools, some speech and language pathologists, and I think we might have a couple .5 positions as far as learning impaired for mild moderate. But does anyone have any questions about special education? Ma'am.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Can we go over?
Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Lear, and I do have a question about the program management. So my first question is, Dennis, his last name is?
Labriola.
Yeah, Mr. Labriola announced his retirement in the early spring, and it sounds like I don't know when the process began to replace him, but late October puts it at about 6 months. And so what I would like to know is systemically, why did it take till now to get to that point, number one? Number two, if the position is funded, to what extent can you get somebody, a substitute in there for these temporary for these positions that are not filled but yet funded? So I guess that's two separate issues. The Dennis Labriola issue, I would say what I thought I heard you saying is that may not be covered until late October. And if that is the case, we've gone almost the whole quarter without that position filled. And so I would like to know as to what extent can someone from HQ Dodea at the special ed level come here, TDY, and fill that slot? Because if there's no oversight being provided, obviously Dennis' job was to provide oversight and guidance and supervision. So who is filling that role in his absence? And then the second question I have is, if we have funding for these .5 positions that you just alluded to, speech pathology, why can we not reach out to the community and in the interim get substitutes to fill these positions? Because the teachers are overstressed, if that's the case, and the kids are going to be impacted by that.
Okay. All good questions, so let me see if I can. The federal government, which we're part of, I have to wait for them to post the job to announce it. And while Labriola announced his retirement in the spring, until he walks away,
It can't be posted, sure.
it can't be
That
posted.
makes sense. That's what I figured.
So
Thank you.
we waited. This was one of the last positions we actually had posted. It's right up there. We have some technology positions. It's unexplainable why they didn't post this job earlier. It's been very disappointing and very frustrating, and we need this position. There's also an opening in Benning, which is also part of our district. So we're going to move very quickly. I got the list last Friday. So we're scrubbing the applications tomorrow, and we'll interview next week, and hopefully we can offer it quickly, and hopefully it happens faster. In the interim, Dr. Linda Brake has been here, I think, every week
Oh, good.
since